New York City mayoral candidate Scott Stringer has lost a number of endorsements from progressive backers, including the Working Families Party, following sexual misconduct allegations that were made against him.
So the fallout ensued after Stringer's former campaign worker, Jean Kim. She came out with a statement that revealed Stringer repeatedly tried to grope Kim 2 decades ago. Stringer, however, denied these allegations. And D.C. bureau chief at The Intercept, host of the Deconstructed podcast, Ryan Grimm, he joins us now to discuss. Ryan, lay out the facts as we know them, both about the accusation, the denial, and more, and what you've been able to find out.
All right, so Jean Kim's accusation was that she was an unpaid intern on Scott Stringer's 2001 public advocate campaign, and that he relentlessly pursued her, groped her in a cab, and groped her in a seemed like in a bar. Multiple. She made allegations that there were multiple times that he pursued her despite her insistence that he stop. His claim is that she was not an intern on the campaign, and that she was part of the social set that he'd been involved with for several years. At that point, she was a volunteer who helped out on the campaign, and that they had a casual relationship that was consensual.
And so where does the story what have you been able to uncover about the facts of those stories? Who seem to be closer to the truth?
So, without witnesses or corroborating evidence, it's impossible to know, what happened directly between those two. But on those two other major claims, you can interrogate those. So it does turn out. And we spoke with the field director who ran the intern program. We spoke to a number of other people who were in and around the campaign at the time, and they said there's absolutely no way that she was an intern on that campaign. It just wasn't true. It was more accurate to describe her as a volunteer, but even that isn't entirely accurate. There was a kind of social set on the Upper West Side, of which both Kim and Stringer were a longtime part of, and all of the friends in this social set, helped Stringer's campaign. He was an assemblyman at the time, and so that seems rather clear. And she has since effectively sort of walked back the claim that she was an intern on the campaign. Everyone had day jobs, and they would volunteer, nights and weekends helping out their friend. She had a day job. She made donations to the campaign in 1999, 2000, and 2001, and she listed her occupation as a PR specialist. And so, that comports with what everybody else said. Now, she also said that they first met in 2001 on the campaign. That doesn't seem to stand up either. And that would fit with the frame of an intern, kind of who walks onto the campaign and is preyed upon by a powerful politician. But the donation history suggests that they knew each other much earlier. They were both members of the same small Democratic club on the Upper West Side. We found membership records that date her membership in that club prior to that. So that also supports what people said, that no, she was part of our social set. She was not 20 years old, she was 30. And the entire social set was 30s and 40s. And so the other thing that you can fact check is whether or not they were in a relationship. And people who were around at the time say that yes, there was a casual romantic relationship that everybody was well aware of that was going on. She has flatly and explicitly denied that exists, but people around them say it did. It's also brought up this awkwardness of people trying to describe what that relationship was without saying, kind of hooking up in the newspaper. Because it's very difficult to describe this in a reasonable kind of way. And one of the sources I talked to said, well, at the time we would call it friends with benefits, and she said, I'm not even sure if that's an appropriate term that we can use anymore in today's culture. But that's what was going on. And so that doesn't mean that her allegations are wrong. And it may be that he took this casual relationship that they had and aggressively took it too far, breaking the norms, kind of those unspoken norms of what those casual relationships are. So it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but the things that you can check don't check out.
And so, Ryan, why does this matter? So what was the fallout from the accusation politically? Has he been denounced and more? Like, why is parsing and reporting on this matter?
So Yang, as you know, is polling atop the field right now. It's a very crowded field, and he does seem to be the prohibitive favorite at this moment. The question for him, though, is how broad his support is, because of ranked choice voting, he can't win with just 25-30% of the vote. He also has to be people's second choice as well. So if he has high support, but it's very narrow, then that opens a pathway for somebody else. Over the past several weeks, Stringer had been surging, and the kind of progressive organizations had kind of coalesced around him as the alternative to Yang. Now, most of those progressive organizations have since backed off of him, which actually shows that there wasn't a whole lot of love between those groups. Stringer is not exactly kind of a radical insurgent that comes from social movements. For instance, he's been part of this Upper West Side Democratic Club since the 1990s. But there was an alliance of convenience to try to stop Yang. Those progressive groups have now, mostly abandoned him, though a lot of labor unions and some others are sticking by him. I think it's possible that this could actually boomerang to his benefit. That's certainly possible. People who wanted to cast a vote against the establishment in the past had Andrew Yang as the person that they could vote for. Now they sort of have two different people they could vote for to sit. To kind of thumb their nose at the Democratic political establishment. Ironically, since he's kind of long been a charter member of that establishment. But it's very hard to know, and because there are so many candidates and they're spreading the vote out so wide, who knows? But it all but to your question, it goes to how do progressive groups and endorsers respond to allegations that are brought forward without any corroborating evidence? No witnesses to say, yes, she told me about this 18 years ago, 19 years ago. How do you respond to those when there are just weeks to go before the campaign?
Right. Well, and I can't help but think of the comparison between two other stories that you were involved with. One was Alex Morse, where there's a similarly uncorroborated and sort of vague allegations of sexual misconduct. Lo and behold, this was an orchestrated smear campaign. There was never any there. But progressive groups dropped their endorsements without having any evidence that the vague accusations were true. And he ended up losing what was an incredibly important primary against Richie Neal, who's one of the worst actors in the Democratic Party. So he was not able to recover from those allegations, even though your great reporting exposed them to be utterly fabricated and a part of an orchestrated smear campaign. And then the other thing is, really disparate treatment of Tara Reade, who had a lot more corroboration for her allegations against Joe Biden. Very, similarly, no one knows what happened on that day except Tara and now President Biden. But those accusations were completely dismissed out of hand, even though she had told people contemporaneously, and she had been in the Senate office at the time and basically represented accurately her position there. Here, essentially everything that Kim has represented has been disputed by some people around her. There's no evidence that she told anyone contemporaneously, and yet this was treated as fact from the beginning.
Right. And also Kim said that because of this incident, she quit this Democratic club and moved across town and didn't want to have anything else to do with Stringer. But we got records that show she continued being a dues-paying member for many years after that. Got email correspondence showing that even a decade later, she was still actively involved with this club. That she volunteered for Stringer's 2005 campaign, donated to his 2008 campaign, donated again in 2010, applied to work for him in 2013, did not get that job, and at that point and went to work for Spitzer, his opponent, and at that point the donation runs cold. But you're right. In the disparate treatment between these different situations with Tara Reade. In fact, Maya Wiley wrote a very thoughtful essay at the time, parsing how we ought to respond to allegations that are made in the heat of the campaign, saying that we need to believe women, and by that we need to listen to their allegations, but that doesn't mean that everything everybody says automatically is accepted as the truth, and that the credibility needs to be parsed. And Wiley, however, the day after this press conference, came out and said he needs to drop out.
Sorry, we're distracted by your cat.
Marveling at that cat.
Sorry, guys. I'll see.
It really got up there. There's always something going on in the Grimm household.
Ryan, don't want to detract from
man.
the seriousness of your reporting here. Great job, great story. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. You got it.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.